Welcome to the Cash Flow Couple Podcast, where we go behind the scenes in our short-term rental business and reveal tips, tricks, secrets, successes, and failures. Whether you have 0 units or 100 units, this podcast is for you. I'm your hostess with the mostest, Wendy Williams, along with my husband, John Williams. Together, we operate Queen City Suites, a short-term rental business here in Charlotte, North Carolina. Welcome back. I am Wendy Williams. I can't say another exciting episode anymore. John won't let me.
No, whatever you do, don't say another exciting episode.
I know. I'm going to have to come up with something else to say. But we do have some very exciting news.
We do.
It's finally here.
So we got our book published.
Yes.
Finally.
Oh my goodness.
It took us forever.
It
seems
so
like forever.
exciting.
It took a couple of months to actually write it and send it out so that people could correct our grammar.
Right. They had to proofread it.
Right. And then at the last minute we decided, we should organize it totally different. and we changed it all around, but it's now out.
Yes.
It's really cool. And
it really is cool, isn't it?
Yes, and we're the number one new release in hospitality, travel, and tourism.
Oh, that is so exciting.
Yes, and
congratulations.
We made it to actually number 2 bestseller in that category yesterday, and we made it to number 4, I think, in real estate in general.
Wow, that's amazing.
Which is really cool, isn't it?
It really is cool.
It's kind of surreal.
Yeah.
And the other here's another funny thing. We ordered, when you publish through Amazon, you can order what they call author copies, which you still have to pay for, but they're reduced. It's basically a cost plus shipping. But as an author ordering those, apparently they come on like a really slow boat from China because we don't have ours yet.
And people are posting pictures with their book, and I'm like, man, I haven't even gotten mine yet.
Yeah, so people are on Facebook saying, hey, thanks for the book, and they're like posing with it. I'm like, I'm glad you got your copy because I don't have mine yet.
It's not fair.
It's not fair. It's totally not fair.
I can't wait to get it. I can't wait to hold it in my hand. It will make it more real for me, I think.
Yeah, it is a little surreal to see people holding your book.
Right. And then some people want your autograph.
Yeah, like autograph my book. I'm like,
wow.
Okay. I mean, I will. It's just kind of... It's just strange.
It is.
It just feels weird.
But
I'm glad we got it out.
I am too. And we worked really hard on it. So. And
it's not, like we say in the introduction to the book, it's not a be all end all to everything short-term rental, but it has a lot of value in there.
I think so.
It's a set of 88 things that we've learned either from others or from doing, or actually done all of them. Nothing in that book is something we haven't actually done or implemented.
That's true. We have implemented all those tips.
But I
that's
never
how
want
we
to
know
pretend
they work.
like I made it all up myself. Of course, we have mentors and we have, education that we've gone through as well. And then some of it really is just stuff we had to learn the hard way, basically. Yep. But pick it up. It's on Amazon. It's called 88 Secrets to Success for Your Short-Term Rental, and it's available in Kindle.
Your short-term rental business.
Yeah, for your short-term rental business. You're right. I don't even know the title of my own book. 88 Secrets to Success for Your Short-Term Rental Business.
That's it.
And it's available on Kindle and paperback. So, check it out. Get a copy. We'd really appreciate it. It helps us move up the rankings. We're not actually going to make much money selling books, to be honest with you. Unless you're Stephen King, you're not getting rich selling books.
Well, that's not really why we did it.
But that's not why we did it. We just kind of wanted the information out there.
Yeah.
And it gives us a way to say, instead of answering giving the same advice out all the time, we can say, here, read this.
Yes.
Right?
Here, read my book.
And it's gotten really positive reviews.
Well, it was interesting because there's another question that we get asked a lot, and we wanted to bring it up on this week's podcast.
Yeah, so that's the topic this week.
So how much can I make?
Yeah, so this was actually spawned. So this was spawned from a question that somebody tagged me in a Facebook post on one of the local real estate groups. And they said, hey, basically their question was about AirDNA. So
AirDNA.
Yeah, so I think we've talked about that before.
A little bit. So why don't you explain exactly what AirDNA is.
Okay, so AirDNA, it's basically a subscription service, although there's a free side of it, but it's a website that you can go to, and what they do is they compile data on Airbnb and now HomeAway.
Oh, it includes HomeAway now.
HomeAway data, yeah.
Oh, interesting.
So the data on there is Airbnb and HomeAway, and what it does is it shows you all of the listings in a area. So it could be a zip code or it could be a city. It depends on what you pay for.
Oh, so the free thing.
The free thing covers areas, but it doesn't give you all the information. So they're giving you information on what's the average nightly rate. What's the average occupancy.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
And then they break it down and say, well, the top 25% of people get this, and the 50% of people get this, and the bottom 25 get this. And so it's not bad data, other than it's all jumbled together. So when you go there and look at it, you would like to believe that, oh, this is what I could make as a 3-2 house in this zip code, because this is the average of all the other ones. That would be logical to think at first.
I would think so.
But what it doesn't take into account is, what are those places? Are they professionally run, or are they amateurly run? Are they doing the cleaning themselves, or are they hiring a cleaning crew? And here's why things like that matter. They may have really high occupancy, but it may be because they're way underpriced. Or it may be because they're only charging $20 for cleaning because they figure we're doing it ourselves. And so more people are able to stay there because it's cheaper. But if you're running it professionally, it would be hard to find a cleaner that would be willing to come for $20.
For sure.
Like in our business model, we don't clean our own units. We just can't, for one thing. And two, it's not the best use of our time. So there's that. There's also a lot of differentiation as to, a 3-2 house isn't a 3-2 house isn't a 3-2 house when you're talking the hospitality business, which this is. And I think because this was on a real estate forum, a lot of people come at it from a real estate mindset. Like, for example, if you're going to go, do comps, try to figure out the value of a house, there's a science to that. Some of it's an art, but you can get pretty close, especially if you're talking about a house in a neighborhood, because you can say, what are the recent sales? You're the realtor, right? So it's the last 6 months?
Right.
And it's within a half mile. And then you're looking for comparable properties, correct?
That's correct.
Something like an AirDNA, what it leaves out are the comparable properties part. Because what's comparable about properties in the short-term rental space as opposed to regular real estate is it isn't really, the number of bedrooms and bathrooms and even the specific neighborhood aren't the whole story.
Well, it would have to depend on what level of service you're providing too, right?
Well, that's obvious to you, but you're in the business.
Well, yeah.
But to somebody who comes from a real estate background, and this specific question was in a real estate group, and I think a lot of people that are interested in Airbnb, quote,
are in real estate.
Well, they tend to be investors or entrepreneurs,
yes,
or come from that world a lot of the time. And a lot of the things you would take for granted or that you would use in a real estate setting don't really directly apply to the hospitality business, which is what this is. And I've said this before, it's kind of like owning the commercial strip, like a strip mall, versus running the businesses inside the strip mall.
Oh, that's a really good analogy.
So it's kind of like, well, what could you make in that spot in a commercial space? And my question is going to be, I don't know, what kind of business are you putting in there? Because that matters more than the spot.
That's a really good analogy. It's kind of like what I was saying before. It's what level of service are you providing? Are you the Nordstrom?
Well, explain that. You're explaining it as if people know what you're talking about.
Well, you can't, there's different levels of service within the short-term rental business, right? So,
Well, just like hotels.
yeah. So the Motel 8 or the cheap places are not quite as nice. And so we would call them like the Dollar General of short-term rentals, right? So you just stick in secondhand furniture or stuff that you find, on the Facebook marketplace. That's, cheap stuff that you don't decorate it a whole lot, and it's probably not in the best location. That kind of thing.
Well, it could even be in the best location. That's the whole point to that. You could have two houses that are right next to each other in the same spot, but they're going to make different amounts of money because they serve different. What you're talking about is different clients.
Yes, that is what I'm talking about.
Is the person that you're trying to attract just interested in the cheapest place possible, or are you trying to serve 5-star guests that want the top of the line everything?
Right. And it doesn't matter. It's just
it doesn't, but
you have to define who that is.
Yes, and that's what something like an AirDNA can't tell you.
But that's right. AirDNA can't distinguish between.
It doesn't know that.
Right. And
All
you
it
can
knows
tell
is
a lot by
these
the
are
pictures.
two houses. One makes $1,000 a month. One makes $500. Well, we figure the average is whatever the average is. What is that? $700 or something?
$750.
$750. And they'll be like, well, you can make $750. And the one guy's like, well, I'll make $1,000. And the other guy's like, well, I'll only make $500. So see how that data is interesting, but it doesn't tell the whole story. And it also doesn't tell you that, well, the guy that is serving what you were calling the Dollar General customer probably doesn't have the expenses the other guy either.
That's true. That's a really good point.
So they didn't have all the upfront stuff. Maybe they don't even provide cable.
And they probably don't have a security system.
They might not. Although we would say everybody should, no matter what your level.
For sure.
That should be a baseline. But, they may not be, buying the nicest mattresses. Maybe they're buying something else.
Right.
Maybe their stuff isn't all new. Maybe it's the old stuff they got rid of out of their house and they bought new furniture for their house. We stayed at a place like that before.
Yes, we did.
We're like, this is all their old stuff.
Yes, we did.
So, it doesn't take into account. So what I would say is when you go to a place like an AirDNA or you go to even if you're just like going to go on a platform like an Airbnb and start looking up properties, you need to look at those and say, is that a valid comp? Meaning, who does it look like they're serving?
And you can look at the pictures and tell.
You can tell somewhat, but a lot of them are generic.
They really are.
And then another thing you don't know is you don't know what customer they're serving, not just levels, but, are they serving traveling nurses or are they doing business travelers?
Can you tell that by the
Not always.
title of the listing?
Sometimes.
Because sometimes.
So you can get close. I'm not saying that you can't get close, but what really bothered me was I was trying to explain this to the person that asked the question, going back to that Facebook post, and somebody jumped in on the discussion and said, well, if you want hard numbers, send us a thing and we'll send you a report. And what they are is they're a management company here in town, and their business model is to manage properties for other people. And so what they're going to do is give you a report to say, hey, you could make this at this place. And by the way, we can manage it for you. Or I think they have some other business models and stuff, which is fine.
How do they know that?
Well, like I said, you can do stuff like that. You can go on. We do this. When we look at a place, we say, we know who our customer type is. We serve families with children coming to town, blah, blah, blah. We serve a Target, Nordstrom type client, not full Nordstrom, but not Walmart, definitely, right? We're like a nice Target. We're like the redesigned. We just had a redesigned Target here in close to town where we live. So we're like the redesigned Target, right? Everything's new. And we know, what that customer wants, and then we're pricing based on that. For example, some of our places are pet friendly, so we're able to charge more. That's another differentiation.
Yeah.
So going in, I can say, now I can go into an area and say, okay, knowing that about my place, can I find another place that also caters to families with children, that is pet friendly, that has the same number of bedrooms and bathrooms that I do, that's in a similar location. And now I'm starting to look at more of a true comp, and I can say, okay, what does their vacancy look like?
Oh, so you have to go through and
you're going to have to do it manually.
Look at the pictures and look at where they're located.
And their description, like
and
you
the
said.
description and the listing title.
And the amenities, what
and
are they
the
offering?
amenities, yeah.
Do they also have a washer and dryer?
But you have to do that all manually. We do.
Yeah, you kind of do because you can't write a software program that's going to look at subjective things like that.
No.
Because people are going to decide, a family with children coming to town with their pets is looking for a specific type of place, and they're going to choose one place over another. And by the way, they're willing to pay more for that place because it suits them.
Well, that's the thing about being super niche.
Yeah, it is. And you're exactly right. Something like an AirDNA is super not niche.
Yes.
It's super general.
It's super general.
And I would think that if I sent my address to a management company, even if I had a specific property and they sent me back a report saying this is what you could make, you need to take that with a grain of salt, because it's not a hard number. It's a pro forma statement based on generalities. And maybe if you can tell them more, like if you came to me and said, hey, this is my client type, this is what I'm serving, these are the level of furnishings I'm going to put in there, all this kind of thing. And then I can kind of give you an idea of, okay, what's that going to cost you specifically to put that in there? And then based on that and this area and this customer type, here's what you can generally probably get. And even then it's going to be, well, this is what you can get in January. This is what you can expect to get in February, which is going to be different. March is going to be different. April's going to be different. May, June, July. December for us is a great month because of who we serve, because they're coming to town to visit family, because it's the holidays. So December actually ends up being very good for us. But if your client type is something totally different, it may not be. Like, for example, if you're, catering to people coming to the Whitewater Center, well, that's not really popular in December.
Right.
Because it's outside. So there's things you got to think about that are specific to your property that go beyond something you can just generate in a generic report. And that's what kind of bothered me about it a little bit. And I understand they got a market, and maybe they do all that. Maybe they do. But I would hesitate to tell anybody, here's a hard number. He would ask, and a hard number to me is a number I can count on. And if I've got to give you a hard number, then I'm going to fudge it low, because I don't want you coming back to me saying, well, how come I didn't make the money you said I was going to make?
Well, yeah. I mean, what happens if you don't make the money that this person says that you're going to make?
Then you're going to have problems.
And you based your whole business around it.
Yeah, maybe you based your expenses off of it, because now your ROI, your return on investment is based on what you invested and how much you're able to get back. What your revenue is. And so this is very much a profit and loss type business, like any business is. But with, regular long-term rentals, once you put somebody in there for 12 months, you know what your revenue is. I know what it is for the next year on a year lease, because the monthly payments are the same. But to be able to say for a fact, as a short-term rental, I'm going to make this month and this the next month and this the next month, is not what I would call a, quote, hard number. I would call that a pro forma number, if you want to put it in real estate terms that I understand. And that's you could make. That's the whole, anytime anybody ever sells you something as a rental, you see that all the time, right? They're like, well, the rents are only $500 now, but they could be $900. Right. Well, if they could be, why don't you go ahead and bump them up to 900 and then I'll because they want the sale price based on what it could be.
Right.
And I've never encountered a management company yet, at least on the real estate side, that guarantees me a number before it's rented. In fact, they don't guarantee me that the tenant will stay either, do they?
Well, they can't possibly know that.
Exactly. And that was kind of my whole point. And it kind of bothered me that somebody came in and said, oh, we can tell you that. We can tell you a hard number. Because I almost feel like it's a little bit of marketing and it's a little bit of it. Just I would explain it just like I'm explaining it now, because a management company takes none of the risk. The investor does. The management company gets paid when it's rented, and they get a piece of that.
What if it's not rented? What if it's
then they don't
negative?
Get paid, but they don't have anything in it either.
Right.
You know, that's the difference between what we do is we lease the places, and then it's all the risk is on us because we owe the rent whether we make any money or not. No matter how much we make, we owe whatever the rent is. So the risk really we've taken on as a short-term rental, and that's why we make the money that we make. If we make profit, we get to keep it because we took the risk, because we've guaranteed a return in the form of a lease to the landlord. But as a management company, that's not what you do, is it? You take a piece of whatever they make. And so really it's the investor that's taking on all the risks now, because they're the ones buying the supplies. They're the ones doing all the furnishing. They're the ones taking care of the utilities and all that. And there's really no risk to you as a management company other than if I don't do a good job, then I don't make money. And by the way, you can fire me. So I'm providing a service. So in that case, I guess you could say it's a risk, but it's not an investment risk because I don't really have anything in it. None of my money's in it. It's only my time and, my business reputation, all that kind of thing, which is valid, but I'm not taking an investment risk. See the difference?
Yeah, I get it.
Just like in a long-term rental, I put a tenant in there. I hire a management company. That's great. They take care of all of that, but they get a piece of it.
Sure.
But if that person leaves, it's bad for them because they're not getting the piece anymore, but they're not the ones paying the mortgage either. So I love property management. I do. I think it's a great thing, but you'll never find, well, I shouldn't say never say never, right? But property management companies don't usually guarantee returns.
Yeah. So how is it possible that this particular short-term rental property management company is saying, yeah, here's some hard numbers?
I don't think they really can. But I think what they would like to have the perception of is they have the magic bullet.
Ah, gotcha.
Like they have the magic formula and they've been doing it, all these properties, and they know what you're going to make. And I'm just telling you that they don't. Unless they're willing to write you a check for the difference, if you don't make the numbers that they said you did, then they don't really believe it then, don't they? They're not really that confident, are they? Are those hard numbers? Or are those informed guesses?
Ooh, that's really good.
That's my only point. And I'm not saying anything. I'm not saying what, it's wrong. I just want people to understand that. Because I think a lot of real estate people, again, come at it from a real estate perspective. And it's not like regular rent where you're like a 3-2 rents for this in this area. And we might have to lower it a little bit if, it's not as nice as the one across the street. Like you don't have a pool. Or it's on a busy street, that's going to make it probably rent for less than a comparable 3-2. But it's not like that. It's something totally different. Because generally, 2 houses beside each other that are both rentals generally serve the same type of client because of where they're located, or get the same kind of, long-term renter, but not so necessarily in the hospitality business.
Because there's so many other factors to consider.
Yeah, you can have a Super 8 and a Hilton on the same, sharing a parking lot, can't you? But they're totally different price points and totally different expense points too. So who has the higher ROI? Who has the higher return? I'm not sure. It could be either.
Yeah, I guess it kind of depends, doesn't it?
I would even venture to say, I thought about this as I saw that. If I open a Burger King franchise, what can I expect to make? What's my hard number? What am I going to make? And you can't even guarantee that. We just had a Burger King go out of business right up the street from us.
Yeah, and it was in a great location.
Yeah. But there are other Burger Kings that are doing great. And that should be like an apples to apples, you would think. And even that doesn't always work out because they're businesses. They're not real estate, even though real estate is a business, but it's not like that. It's not like you can bring in an appraiser and tell you what it's worth.
That's a really good point, that it's not real estate. It's a business.
It is. And I don't want to beat that dead horse to death, but it kind of bothered me a little bit.
I can tell.
Because I felt like I was trying to give the real deal, the real truth. And I don't like it when somebody else comes in and says, oh, well, I'll give you a hard number. Because I think that people want to believe that.
Well, yeah, because it's easy.
Yeah, if I come in and tell you, oh, dude, you're going to make $2,000 a month at this place.
Well, they don't want to hear that they have to do all this other work.
Yeah, you don't
Nobody
want
wants
to
to hear that.
It depends. Because you want to feel like it's if I put this much in, I'm going to get this much out, and it's math, and that's all it is.
Well, people want a hard guarantee and an easy fix.
But it's really not that way.
No, and it's not going to be. And I don't care where you're located.
And I just think it's a little...
It's still a little deceptive.
It's a little deceptive. Especially if you're selling something.
Yes.
Which I'm not to them. I'm just giving them my personal, real world experience and advice.
Well, that's the type of person you are. I could tell you were bothered by it because you were over there all quiet.
I was bothered by it. And I'm not saying they're totally wrong. I just it bothered me a little bit.
Well, people just need to know that. People just need to understand that they are telling you what they think, yes, but people need to realize that it's not going to be hard numbers. Those numbers, they can't guarantee that you are going to make this amount of money that they're telling you that you're going to make.
Yeah, I mean, your cleaning crew might totally suck and screw up your listing.
Well, we've had that happen before.
And then you don't get booked as high as other people. So how are you going to know that up front and try to give somebody a hard number about what they're going to make at their property? And then, for example, what happened to us? The HVAC went out. And the guy came to fix it and he screwed up. And it was still hot the next day and we had to refund them and they gave us a bad review. How many people did that affect booking that place? How did that affect the profitability of that place? And that's totally unpredictable.
Yep.
And that's just one example of things that could go wrong. So I don't want to say anything is a hard number or here's your hard number on ROI. I would feel unethical telling somebody that and being like, just go for it, man. You're good.
Right. So, tell people what we do. Tell people what we do. Well, and we talked a little bit about it already, but...
Well, obviously we do short-term rentals, so we're not...
No, I'm talking about...
No, I know what you mean.
How we use AirDNA, because we do use AirDNA.
Sure we do. And we use Airbnb, and I use HomeAway market data, and I use a lot of different things. But I do exactly what I talked about. I go, we start with whom do we serve, right? So I go look for comps of other places that I think are comparable to mine.
Well, how do you know some places comparable to yours?
I look at the pictures. I look at how they market. I look at their descriptions. I look at things like what are they charging for cleaning? What do their pictures look like? Are they professional pictures or are they amateur pictures? Does the furniture does it look like it's been designed by a designer or is it something somebody threw together? Does it look like it's a high-end place or a lower-end place? And because I know which one of those categories my place fits in, then that allows me to say, okay, this one's pretty close to mine. And I'm really not competing with these other ones. So I don't even consider, if you're an amateur operator, you're not competition to me because I'm not competing with you. You're on a different model than I am. Your expenses are different. Everything's different. So I want to pick out who are the professional operators, and then I want to say what clients does it look like they're serving, and when I find the ones that I think match in a particular area, then I'm going to go look at, well, okay, how is their calendar booked? What does their occupancy look like? What are they charging per night?
And you can find that information on Airbnb or
Airbnb or AirDNA actually will show you the links to the listings.
That's right, they sure do.
Yeah, so you can tell, and then realize those aren't even all the only factors, right? This isn't necessarily an occupancy business; it's a revenue business.
Ooh, that's deep.
And so some of that stuff you don't know. Like, are they charging a pet fee? Are they charging for early and late checkouts? Those are revenue sources that don't show up in an AirDNA. Or unless it just happens to be in the description, you don't know. Are they charging for extra guests over a certain amount? That would be something to know. So there's a lot of little research you have to do. And I would think if I had to do that for everybody that asked me for a report,
it'll take up a lot of time.
I probably wouldn't get that detailed about it. But I do in my business, because I need to know that kind of thing. So, you're meticulously going to look at it, and then you're going to look at, okay, what are my expenses versus what I think that we're able to do, and does that make sense for us? So there's a little bit of subjectivity to it, to be honest with you. It's hard to be super objective, because for one thing, it's hard to find somebody that's like totally exactly like you are.
I was just thinking about that. Like, when we go on AirDNA and we're looking at other properties, it's hard to tell. I mean, yeah, you can tell a little bit from the pictures. If they don't have professional pictures, I just discount them altogether. That's
not a comp for me.
It's just not somebody that I want to that I need to look at, because I'm not competing with them. But if they do have professional pictures and their listing description fits our guest profile, then I would actually go in there and look at their calendar. But it's few and far between, to be quite honest.
It is. And you're always only competing with yourself, right? But there is competition.
Well, that's why I hated to say the word competition. I hesitated, but...
Well, that's a little off topic, but you hear people, well, the market's saturated. Is it?
I don't feel like it is.
It depends on who you're serving. Is it saturated
exactly
for families
right.
and children coming to town with pets? That's exactly what I want to know.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to know whom you're serving and get really super niche.
Yeah, it really does.
So I think that's a really good point.
But you do need to, if you can't just go in and hope and pray that we're going to, make money.
Well, we don't do that.
You have to do some kind of analysis. But
sure, you got to do some due diligence.
But the point is, it's much more complicated than you would initially think.
Yes.
And if you come from a real estate mindset, I think it's more complicated than real estate is, because it's not real estate.
That's right.
It's just not. And there's a lot of variables out there. There's a lot of things to think about.
And I think that real estate people need to realize that it's not real estate. But they want it to be. And they're trying to fit it into that nice, neat box. And it's just an exit strategy for them. And
I think
doesn't work.
People are lured by, I can get like
right.
4 times the rent, they said.
Right.
Well, yeah, your expenses are like 3.5 times rent too. So are you really making more money than you would have as a short-term rental?
Right.
And especially if you add management costs. I question that.
I do too.
To be honest with you. I hear it anecdotally. Oh, well, I do this and they manage it and I make this. But I always kind of want to say, what are your real, what are your expenses though? And what would market rent for that place be as a long-term rental, and how much are you really making more for so much extra added risk?
Yeah, so I guess the whole purpose of this podcast is to just tell people to be cautious when you hear someone say, yeah, I can give you hard numbers or hard data or something like that. Then, you really need to, it needs to be a red flag for you.
Yeah, and you need to make sure that where that data is coming from is a true comp to what your property actually is.
So
and now that we've talked about that, it's not just location and configuration,
so giving them more information, such as who your target guest is, what type of furnishings you're going to be putting in your unit, that kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Would help them make a better decision if you're going to go that route.
Yeah, I think so.
I think so too.
And I think that's kind of the part of the risk of it, actually, is, when you're going to make us kind of a subjective decision, to be honest with you, based on that. And that's why if you're going to buy a property, now we lease all of ours, so there's less risk in that, just because, hey man, if it didn't work out, we just don't renew the lease.
Right.
We're not stuck in a mortgage. But if you're going to go buy a place, one of the worst things you can do is buy it based on short-term rental revenue. You need to make sure that it makes sense as a long-term rental, excuse me. And if it makes money as a long-term rental, then you've got a home run as a short-term rental.
For sure.
So don't get so caught up in, hey, what is it going to make as a quote Airbnb? Make sure it makes sense as a rental, period. And then go do the short-term rental thing. And if it doesn't work out, then you got something to fall back on.
Yeah, that's really good advice.
Or if you make more money, hey, that's great. It's just gravy. So that's just an extra little piece. But I think a lot of that comes into play sometimes nowadays, at least, because a lot of people are feeling like deals are tight, and they're like, well, if I just turn it into a short-term rental, then rent would be this.
Right. Yeah.
And you can't look at it that way. I mean, you can, but you're setting yourself up for
failure.
Yeah, I think so. So hopefully that answered kind of partly your question. So to wrap up, I would say be careful about, pro forma stuff. Be careful about data like AirDNA. Be careful about just looking in an area and saying, okay, well, this house should make this, and make sure that you're doing real comps. And I think, and maybe you can pay somebody to do that for you, but make sure they're doing that. Make sure they're doing what I just described. Make sure they're actually pulling real comps. If they haven't asked you who your target client is, then they can't possibly do real comps, can they?
Really good advice.
So make sure you're asking the right questions, and make sure they're asking you the right questions, so you know that you're getting real pro forma numbers, and they are going to be pro forma. Unless they're going to sign a piece of paper that says, hey, if you don't make the $3,500, we'll write you a check for the difference. And then I'm like, good, man. If you can get somebody to do that, go for it.
Sure. Yeah,
go for it. And maybe you just consider, going with a company like ours that just rents it at market rent. And you don't have to do all that extra stuff or worry about a management company or have to have that kind of conversation about, well, how come we didn't make as much money as you said we were going to make this month?
That's got to be a really hard conversation to have with somebody that I do not want
I don't want to manage other people's properties.
No, thank you.
Maybe I'm too honest to do that.
Maybe.
Because I would explain it this way, and I would say, hey, there's potential there, and I think we can do this, but I can't guarantee it, and you might not make more than you could just as a long-term rental. I wouldn't have many management clients probably. Because the next person is going to say, no, man, I'm going to send you a report and you're definitely going to make at least this. Just let us manage it for you. We got it down. We know exactly what we're doing.
Well, you go right on with that and then come back in 6 months and let us know how that went out for you.
And some people it's going to work out for, and some people it's not. That's the truth. In my world, I think that's the truth. And don't you think that just makes sense?
I do.
So that's what I had to say about that. I know this has gone on 40 minutes.
Has it really already?
I don't want to keep going around in circles, but that's what I would do.
Well, that's all really good advice, and I hope that everyone found some value in it. Do I have to say where people can contact us anymore? Or do
No,
we have
the
like
outro is already there, so you've already done
man.
all the contact
I don't
information.
have anything to say anymore. This is no fun.
Just say we'll see you again next week.
Okay, well, we'll see you again next week. Can I say it was an exciting episode? Thank you for joining us on another exciting episode.
You got to say something, but remember, you're the one that's got to go edit all this out.
That's right. That's right. All right, we'll see y'all next time.
Thanks for listening to another exciting episode of the Cash Flow Couple. If you found value in this episode, please subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen. We're on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, virtually anywhere you might find a podcast, whatever podcast player you're listening on now. Hit that subscribe button. It really helps us out. It helps other people find us. It helps us move up in the rankings. If you did not know, we also have a YouTube channel. It's The Cash Flow Couple. All of our episodes go there. But as well, we also put other video content that is not part of the podcast. You can find us on Facebook at The Cash Flow Couple. We go live there quite a bit. We share tips, tricks, things that are behind the scenes in our business that you may not see on the podcast, but it's definitely more of a real-time, day-to-day type experience. So definitely follow us on Facebook. If you want to ask us questions or if you have concerns or something you want to hear on the podcast, hit us up by email, info@thecashflowcouple.com. We love to hear from our audience. We really care about you guys. We want to see you succeed, and we want to hear what you have to say. So hit us up, info@thecashflowcouple.com. So until next time, happy hosting, happy investing, and we'll see you on the next episode of The Cash Flow Couple.